Welcome to your April lecture 2025 for AI Marketing Academy. Today we're talking about answer engine optimization, not search engine optimization, answer engine optimization. It's the new day and age where more and more customers, buyers and sellers in your local marketplace are looking things up on ChatGPT, on other AI platforms, instead of what they would have traditionally Googled. So how do you prepare yourself for a state of AI search? And it's not even search, it's answer engine optimization. Today's training is going to give you lots of tips, lots of tactics, a big understanding of what you can do to ready yourself so you're winning in those local intent searches of buyers and sellers who are looking up who's the best, who's the brightest listing agent in my marketplace. Now, if we zoom out 30,000 feet, let's have a broader conversation first about just the importance of search overall. This was a piece of research done by 1000 Watt last year, and it's a remarkable piece of research. In fact, if you just look across the list here, this is your ultimate cheat sheet for generating listings, because they asked sellers this question: how did you choose the real estate agent who helped you sell your home? I'm guessing you're watching and thinking, I sure would like some more listings. Well, if you're watching and thinking that, this right here is your cheat code. 9% of the time they were referred by a personal friend or family member. So the trick is, if you want to get more listings, I guess you could say make more friends, have more family members, and then poof, you're going to get more listings, allegedly. This is the big winner. 34% of the time they were referred to me by a friend or a family member. We know that referrals have been and are still the top dog. They're sort of the lifeline, the lifeblood of generating listings, but I'm going to circle back to that. 6% of the time, they live near me and I know them as my neighbor. And so if I pick that other agent and I put their yard sign in the front lawn, that's going to really sour the relationship between my neighbors. So we're not going to do that. This is the one we're going to talk about today. Here are the headlines. I've highlighted them. 28% of the time I researched agents online, reviews, transaction histories, etc. I'm going to come back to that. 15% said I used an agent finding matching service. I'm going to come back to that. And then 7%, the last one here, said I saw a piece of advertising or marketing that impressed me. So it was a video or an ad or a postcard or something like that. But here's the big headline, if you will, related to search. What we're getting at is sellers are finding agents by way of search, and search is changing. The future of search is unclaimed, and the opportunity is yours, and that's why you're watching right here today. 28% sellers said I researched agents online. I read their reviews. Where? On Google Business Profiles, on Yelp profiles, on Zillow profiles. I looked up their transaction histories. Are they actually selling any homes? Can I count on this person to have a track record that warrants me hiring them for this? 15%, I used an online agent finding matching service like a Fast Expert or a Dwellful or a realestateagents.com. Oftentimes these services have profiles where they might charge you a referral fee or something to that effect, but it's a space where a seller would go to say, should I pick this agent or that agent? Who's going to get the job done for me most optimally? Who can I trust and count on to sell my house? There's a lot of pressure on a seller to make an informed choice, and there's a lot of information that would give the seller the confidence that they are indeed making an informed choice by doing their research online. If you really zoom out and you think about it, how are sellers finding listing agents? There are two dominant paths. It is either by way of relationships, which has always been the lifeblood of this business, or the one that's encroaching and gaining a lot of speed lately is research. It's relationships, it's research. But I'll tell you what, more and more we're seeing sellers are going for research. There's been an attrition of the sources whereby it was done by referral or relationships, and there's been an increase when it comes to research. And now here's what I'm going to suggest to you. I would submit to you that with AI search in the equation, my goodness, is it critically important for you to optimize your presence to be discovered and recommended, not just by Google, not just by these search websites, these agent finding matching websites, not just by Zillow, but by AI across the board. So here's a question to wrestle with. Is Google search antiquated? Is it obsolete? Is it old school? And I would make the argument that it is. It's kind of ineffective if you think about it compared to AI-based searches. Look at this headline here from The Verge. AI search is starting to kill Google's 10 blue links. And if you think about the way Google works, and amazing in its time, but it's like, hey, you ask a question on Google, and then you, instead of getting an answer, you receive 10 links or whatever links there are on the first page of the results for Google. And Google's like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a link by its toe. And so you click a link hoping, is this going to answer my question? And then you wait for the page to load and you start scrolling through looking for the answer. Shoot, I can't find the answer. Where's the answer? So eventually you might hit, if you're smart, you might hit Command F to go see if you can find the keyword or something like that. And you're like, well, this isn't it. So you hit back and you go to the next link and the next link. And it's kind of like a giant endless scavenger hunt versus AI search platforms like ChatGPT, like Gemini, like Grok, like Perplexity, like Microsoft Copilot. These are the big five we're going to focus in on today. They just synthesize the answer for you right there in the chat. And the ability for them, because they're large language models, and so the ability to contextually understand the nuance and the specificity of what you're asking is unparalleled compared to more traditional online search mechanisms. It's just more darn efficient. It's just better. I bet you're asking more ChatGPT questions, things that maybe you would have in the past Googled. You're now ChatGPTing, or you're Geminiing, or you're Grokking. These are weird words that I'm making up right now. But the point is, you're doing it because it's more efficient. And guess who's also doing it? Buyers and sellers in your local marketplace. More and more people are turning to AI for answers. And the question is, who is AI recommending? Who is it citing as its source of content for the questions that are being answered by buyers and sellers in your local marketplace? If you think about it, the internet, the very World Wide Web, is at a state of change. We are now in this world of moving from search to moving to ask. It is search versus ask. I want you to think for a second. Go back to the 90s when Google first comes out. And look at that little search bar right there, the Google search bar. This search bar defined an era of internet consumption. Websites had search bars. Search bars became the norm. They became the ultimate user interface for how we found stuff, did stuff, navigated the World Wide Web. It was search bars. And now we're moving into a new systemic shift where it's ask through chat boxes. ChatGPT and Grok and Claude and all these AIs, they are changing the game. AI is changing everything, but I don't know. Maybe you're not as big of a geek as me, but this slide to me is like, oh my goodness, this is a paradigm shift from search to ask. Everything's going to change. You watch. The websites you use are going to start to change to look more like ask and less like search, because that's going to become the normality. I'm not even sure if that's a word for how people use the internet. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I get it, Jason. I get found by sellers online who are looking me up. What that means is, and think about this for a second, we know that 81% of all sellers, 81% per the National Association of Realtors, only interview one agent before they select their listing agent to sell your house. And you might think, man, that really indicates that sellers just don't care about who they hire to sell their house. And I would say to you, that's probably dead wrong. In fact, what I would suggest is they've done so much upfront research and vetted the decision so carefully that by the time they interview that first agent, it's effectively in the bag. My question is, what did the 19% do to drop the ball at the appointment? Because it was done. It was theirs for the taking, and they somehow messed it up at the last minute. There are interviews going on. It's not that, and let me just go deeper on that stat for a second. 81% only interviewed one agent. 15% only interviewed two. It's not like 81% did one and the balance did 30. No. They're not interviewing many agents. Why? Because they're gaining confidence through their own online research activities. Those agents are being interviewed. They're just not invited to the interview. The interview is happening online, and more is going to be happening inside of AI. So you're probably thinking right now, okay, Jason, I think I get it. I'm recognizing the importance of being optimized in all things search to be found by more sellers. And now there's this new trend of AI-based search, answer engine optimization. How do I even know which answer engines, you could say, that is, which large language models should be your focus? Is it ChatGPT? Is it Gemini? Is it Grok? Which ones are most important? So the next slide I'm going to show you, this was research I did to prepare for today. And you can see like AI estimated desktop and mobile monthly traffic. These numbers were very difficult to generate, very difficult to get. I used a lot of AI to help me get them, doing a lot of deep research, which I'm going to teach you about. I practiced what I preached when I got this data for you for this presentation. This is first OpenAI, this is ChatGPT. Now, these results consider both website usage and mobile app usage. They do not consider APIs. I have eliminated, if somebody's using an API for a backdoor to ChatGPT or something like that, we're not commingling. I got the numbers as pure as I could so we could ask the question, okay, which answer engines deserve my most focus in terms of optimizing my presence because I believe I have the greatest likelihood of being found by a seller on these platforms. I'm going to focus my efforts where I think the most sellers and buyers are conducting their research. And so obviously the answer is, well, ChatGPT. It's what this answer is 5.19 billion monthly active visits. 5.19 billion, give or take, this is estimated, monthly active visits versus Gemini, and this excludes Google search. This is just straight up Gemini. 284 million, it's number 2 with 284 million. Number 3 is Grok, and this excludes X.com. This is straight up Grok, either their mobile app or Grok.com. 190 million monthly visits. And then we have Perplexity with 166 million monthly visits. And then Claude, Anthropic's Claude, which is 102 million monthly visits. And then Microsoft Copilot around the 99 million mark visits per month. So all of these are getting a lot of traffic, but my goodness, this one here, ChatGPT, is really the one worth writing about. So we're going to explore all 5, but I want to put this in some perspective for you. The one that's going to matter the most is the one the seller uses. And the one they're most likely to use based upon this research is, you guessed it, ChatGPT. Now, when you think about these answer engines, and we've talked a lot about large language models in this program. Now, if you're newly enrolled in this program in AI Marketing Academy, and you have not yet taken, there's a course inside of your member profile called AIM Essentials. And it's an 8-video course that goes through the basics of AI so that you can be up to speed with the language and the terminology and all the details of AI. In that session, we talk a lot about large language models and training and all that kind of jazz that I'm not going to re-explain in this video today, but I'll suffice it to say this. You've likely been in a situation where you asked a question of an AI like ChatGPT and it said it didn't know because that exceeded its training cutoff date. And so when in the world of AI large language models, the way they work is you create a model that has the capacity to learn and make observations, and then you feed that model lots and lots and lots and lots of data. That's called training it. In AIM Essentials, I use the metaphor of an AI model is like a baby's brain. It's born really knowing nothing other than pure instinct, but it has the capacity to learn. And then through life and education and experience, a human is trained, so to speak. We learn. And so when you think about these large language models, a large language model like a Gemini, like a Claude, like a ChatGPT, they are trained models, meaning they've been fed what's called a corpus of language, and they've been trained on a whole lot of information. But that has a cutoff period. And so sometimes you might ask a question that relies upon knowledge of current events that these models do not inherently have. And so they're required to go conduct their own web search and then bring back information they did not yet possess and then infer the answer based upon that real-time research. So that's another term that we describe in the Academy. It's called inference. And inference is when an AI goes beyond its extent of current trained knowledge and it draws an inference about what it can learn from a worldwide search. Anyways, hopefully that's making sense. We can talk more about it in the lab if needed, but we'll go back to the slides. On the screen here, it tells us the AI that we're referring to, the large language models we're referring to, and then who powers their web search. So ChatGPT by OpenAI is a hybrid. Their web search is both powered by OpenAI technology and Bing. It is most likely, this is not completely privy knowledge, but it's most likely that Bing provides what's called the index, meaning all the information on the web is actually pulled from Bing, but OpenAI has its own proprietary ranking, you could say, in terms of what information Bing provides to it is most important. That's OpenAI. Google is what's powering Gemini. So Google owns Gemini. And so when you think about Gemini and you ask search, you're getting Google's search engine behind it. So it has the most, I would say, road-tested search engine of all behind it in Gemini. Grok developed their own, XAI developed their own proprietary web search function that literally it crawls the web and it scans all the websites that exist. That may be a new term to you, web crawling. If you think about what Google is, the way Google works is there are these invisible web crawlers that are just little bots that are going out and they're just scanning every website known to mankind, basically, and they're reporting back to Google. Now, the simplest way to explain this to you because it probably matters. You want to have some basic understanding of SEO, so we can move on to AEO, which is answer engine optimization. Think about a library and a card catalog. A library is filled with books and books and books and books and books, shelves of books all over the place. And you don't know where the book you're looking for is, so you go to the card catalog, which is a record of what's where. On the card catalog is not every page in the book. It just knows where to go. And so when you think about an index is like a card catalog. So the way Google works or Bing works is these little web crawlers. They just scan the web all the time. If somebody publishes a new web page, they sense that new signal and they go scan the content, and then they report back to Google so they can add it to the index so that Google knows where stuff is. So when you search for it, it knows where to go to find it. And so what we're talking about right now is how are all of these AIs actually doing their search? And so for OpenAI, it's a combo between OpenAI's actual ranking algorithms, so to speak, versus Bing's actual search results, you could say, their index. Google powers Gemini, XAI built from the ground up for Grok, which I got to tell you, this one blows my mind because their search inside of Grok is really darn good. They very quietly built a competitive search engine that rivals the likes of Google on the back end of Grok. And that, to me, there was not enough attention given to that. Next up is Perplexity. Perplexity powers their own search. They have their own index, but one special note about Perplexity is it is not technically a large language model. It instead licenses and relies upon other large language models. So if you use Perplexity, it is a search engine whereby you're having a chat experience instead of a search experience. So I should say it's an answer engine, and you can choose your favorite large language model. Do you want to use Grok? Do you want to use ChatGPT? Do you want to use Claude? Do you want to use Gemini? What do you want to use DeepSeek? What do you want to use? And you can choose whichever large language model you want to interface with. And then what it brings to the table is its own web crawling, own algorithmic, own search engine-like behaviors. This may be a little over your head. Don't sweat it. We're going to get to the tactical stuff. Next one is Anthropic Claude, and they have a deal with Brave Search. You probably haven't heard of Brave Search. They do a nice job, but they're a third party, and so the search is being done through Brave. And then last is Copilot, which is being powered by Microsoft Bing. And there is a relationship between, you can probably sense it already, OpenAI and Microsoft have a relationship. That relationship is getting a little bit more rocky these days. But Microsoft is a major stakeholder in OpenAI. They bankrolled them. They've made somewhere between 66 plus billion investment inside of OpenAI. It's a lot of money. And so the backdoor relationship between these two is fairly pronounced. So when you're using Copilot, you're kind of using OpenAI. And when you're using OpenAI, you're kind of using Copilot. And so they're sort of one and the same. You could make that argument, even though I divided up their web traffic differently when I showed you this slide right here. The web traffic was divided up. All right, moving on. So again, these are who are powering their searches. I'm going to give you this is my 2 cents. My favorite for my own research is probably Grok. Perplexity is really strong too. Gemini is really strong too. I do like OpenAI because I use it the most. So I find I'm like everybody else where I find myself using it most often because I'm there, just like the 5.19 billion other monthly visitors every single month. But my favorite for research is Grok. But again, you're listening through the lens of, well, it's super duper that Jason likes Grok, but who does a seller like? And the answer is probably ChatGPT. Now, all of this is really important, but you have to put it in additional perspective. When you think about the behemoth, Google, the dominant website and platform online, I mean, their monthly traffic is 23 times bigger than OpenAI. Can you see the teensy weensy little OpenAI down there? Google has 23 times more market share than OpenAI. Notwithstanding, OpenAI is jumping very aggressively. So they're on the up and Google's playing some defense. But I am going to put this in the context of we're not getting rid of Google. Google's not going anywhere. It's just changing. In fact, you might have even noticed Google's often having an AI overview where you ask a question on Google and it gives you a synthesized answer in its overview, which is nice. When it first came out, it was a little bit screwy. Like, for example, when it first came out, you would say, like, hey, how do I get my pizza toppings to stick on a pizza? And its advice was to glue them there. And it's like, okay, some wires were getting crisscrossed here, and that's not the right answer. They've since improved it quite a bit. One of its current limitations, in my opinion, is you cannot ask follow-up questions because it is not conversational. So it simply gives you a one-time snippet-like synthesized answer where it cites its sources, but This is showing up in almost half of all searches on Google right now. And so why is that? Well, because it's really good at helping people get what they're looking for online. And another interesting trend is happening. And again, I don't want to be too geeky with you here, but because of platforms like ChatGPT, where it's moving from search to ask, people ask much more granular, detailed questions. I want you to put a little note in the back of your mind that, hey, the way I'm searching ChatGPT and the way others are searching ChatGPT is probably a lot different than how they're searching Google, in the sense that the way I search on ChatGPT, for instance, is way more detailed, way more specific questions where I really get into the nitty gritty. And therein lies, we're going to get to it, a big strategic advantage. Now, Google is going to do more than this AI overview. They're right now in their labs. If you click on your little lab icon, when you're logged into Gmail, you can meet their AI mode. They're currently testing AI mode, which is just like Gemini. This will be Gemini, basically. This will just be the new, this will likely become what Google looks like in the near future, where instead of search, it's ask. The web is changing. So just be ready for that difference, search versus ask. Now, when you think about the way we're searching the web, I want to get into, the way we're searching on AI. I want to transition for a moment with you. And I want to get into some different layers of research through AI with this. There's a difference between results, like search results. I do a search and it gives me the results of that search, versus true blue research. So beyond just generically typing in a question conversationally inside of my favorite AI, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude, I just say, hey, what's the weather like this week? Or whatever I might type into the chat. That's a conversational search inside of an AI. Most of these large language model platforms, again, like Gemini, like ChatGPT, like Grok, they have a special function called deep research. Deep research is a little bit different than your regular kind of answer engine search, because it's multi-step research that autonomously searches the web, analyzes sources, and synthesizes effectively a well-cited report. Platforms like Grok, they will go into a full state of thinking. Like, this is a screenshot. I'll show you in a quick second here. This one here, it did 2 minutes and 29 seconds of research independently, autonomously. It analyzed 232 sources. It clicked through those links and it crawled the pages, and then it synthesized. It went through this process of thinking, researching, exploring based upon my question. And then it analyzed all this data to give me a definitive answer. This is a feature called deep research. So for example, if I had a question like this, and I'm going to recommend you steal this prompt, I'm going to put it inside of the copy and pastable prompts within the lectures page inside of AI Marketing Academy. So you can just grab this and you're going to fill in the blanks with your name, your company, or location. But I love this prompt, courtesy of Tom Ferry. And it's the perfect example of how to use deep research, and how deep research, whether you're using Grok or Perplexity or ChatGPT, whatever, how it works. This prompt reads, tell me about name. So I could say Jane Doe at ABC Realtors in Nashville, Tennessee. Specifically, how do they show up in AI search? What blind spots do you see in their online presence related to AI search? And then based on what you know about the future of online search and the role of AI in it, what actions can they take right now as a real estate agent to be discovered by more buyers and sellers and to dominate in customer intent searches? So like, for example, let's give this one a go, and I want you to see exactly how deep research works. All right, so I've copied this to my clipboard. Let's jump over to Google Chrome, and I'm going to open up, we'll go to Grok first. So I'm on Grok, and it's got this deep search function. Now, Grok is silly. It has deep search and it has deeper search. It's like, this one's bigger. Deeper research will take us like 15 minutes. We're not going to complete that whole activity right now, but I'm going to just paste the prompt that I just grabbed right here. And it says, tell me about, and then we're going to choose, let's just choose Brandon Howe at Howe Realty in, well, he's outside Greater Phoenix, AZ. Specifically, it's all the same things I just read to you. So I'm going to hit go on this, and I want to let you just watch it work for a quick second in the background. So it's thinking. I can actually click on this little guy over here, and this is actually the internal dialogue it's happening with itself. It's talking to its own brain right now. And it's going through 9 web pages, and it's going to just keep on going through and reading reviews and Zillow and all this kind of fun stuff. And then it's going to evaluate what needs to be done. So what I want to get at here, as this is working in the background, is we're really talking about let me go back to my slides. We're talking about multi-step research. There's a big difference between research and just search. It's not going to just give us the search results. It's multi-step research that's going to give us the answers we're looking for. So let's jump back over to the progress that it's making right now so we can see it. All right, it's done. So let me scroll back up to the top. You can see there's my prompt where I asked it a question, and then it went through 27 seconds. That was fast. 14 sources. That was a quick one. Didn't do a ton of analysis, but did enough. And then it gave us some key points, and then online presence, and it linked out blind spots, actions for improvement, survey note, background online presence. It just goes and goes and goes. I mean, it's a full-blown synopsis. And so you could take that same search and you could run this one if you want to test out a different platform. Let's copy that. You could go, whoops, I copied too much. Let's copy just this. Copy. I could go to Perplexity and I could switch over to research mode. And I'm using the free version of Perplexity currently, and let it do the same and give me, I'm using Brandon Howe as my example right now, but give the user, you, feedback on what should you be doing and be aware of in terms of optimizing your own presence for AI search. Now, you can do that, and then I'm going to give you a bunch more of my recommendations based upon having done this a number of times with lots of agents and having created a blueprint for how do we proceed in terms of ranking better and higher in AI search. But again, you see it. So I want to just juxtapose the difference between a regular conversational search and then deep research. And you'll use your own discretion, and we can get into questions you may have about when do I use which one and your own efforts. But this function here, deep research, is not so much, my focus in sharing this with you today is not to say sellers are necessarily doing this, because whether they do this or conversational search, it doesn't diminish or change your strategy for ranking. But for your own research activities, when you're learning stuff and prepping for podcasts or prepping for content creation or prepping for listing appointments or analyzing your own presence, you should be using the deep research function so that you can get a ton of information fed to you very quickly in a short amount of time. It's just way more efficient for your own learnings and own research efforts and activities. Now, one more feature to make you aware of inside of some of these AIs is a new feature that came out. Literally, it's Friday. This is Friday the 18th of April that I'm filming this. This came out yesterday. I'm calling it unified search because there isn't a term for what I'm going to share with you yet, but unified search, which is AI-powered search across workspaces and web, delivering fast contextual answers from private and public sources. So here's what this is. Claude, which remember, Claude Search, their web search is powered by Brave. They just released a new feature called Workspace, where you can connect your Google Workspace, and this is new, and so I'm making you aware of it, whereby your Google Drive, your Gmail, your Google Calendar can all be connected at your own level of comfort. This literally came out yesterday. Claude is a respectable company, but they do hold on to your data for a longer period of time, so be aware of that. But if you ask it a question in chat, it cannot just go search the web for answers. It can look through your own Google Drive, your own email, your own calendar, and it's this unified search experience between both external public sources and internal private sources of information and search. So those two right there, deep research and unified search, are little extras. I just wanted to tack them into our presentation, but really what we're going to explore today is how do you optimize for answer engines? Again, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Grok, Copilot, Gemini. I was like, I'm skipping one. Gemini. How do you get ready for what sellers are doing, buyers are doing when they're asking their questions and they're doing their research on who do I hire? How do I do this? What about this? They're doing it more and more and more through AI search. And we already know how important search is because we've seen the stats that 1000 Watt and other organizations are giving us that tell us more and more sellers, especially, but buyers too, are finding their agents by way of research. You got to get ready for it. We got to get ready for answer engine optimization. And I'm going to share with you today 5 best practices. And the last one, I'm going to warn you now, is a doozy. It's a big strategy, but I'm going to give you the whole end-to-end strategy in this training. First things first is test the waters and see what AI already likes. Find out exactly who or what AI recommends in your area. I'm going to read that again. Test the waters. We're going to see, well, when I search this, if I put myself in the shoes of a prospective seller in my marketplace, and I just, to the best of my own common sense, type the searches I think they're typing and do it a variety of different ways, I'm going to pay special attention to see, hey, are there certain platforms or websites that it continuously recommends as a cited source? And if so, is there anything I can do on those platforms to reassure them they should be showing me and recommending me in those customer intent searches. So we're going to test the waters. Well, how do you do that? Well, you just jump over to Google Chrome and we'll go to ChatGPT for now. And if I put myself in the perspective of a seller, and I want you to notice there is a search function here. This is not deep research, they're separated. So we're going to go conversational search versus deep research. It really doesn't matter which one you choose to do right now, because it's the way it's going to work is they're going to search the web the same and they're going to rank the same. It's just this one's much more detailed. So how do I say this really, really simply? Once again, deep research, the reason I brought that up was more for you as a searcher, less about what you have to do to optimize for their searches. Because what I'm getting at is whether they, the seller, the buyer, searches this way or this way, whichever they do, either way, the optimization techniques that we're going to deploy today are the same difference for you. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to just go conversational search to make it easy and say, I'm looking for a great realtor to list my luxury home in Brentwood, TN. It's I'll say 90s home. So I don't really want an agent who does a bunch of new construction. Price point they sell in matters too. Who's the best? Now that's a really detailed search. Why? Because there's a difference between search and ask. And more, people are going to keep taking bigger strides toward these conversational searches because they can. And it's such an efficiency gain. So I'm going to use a really, really detailed search like that. I just made this up. If I were you, I would spend some time maybe asking past clients, what are you searching online? Hey, how would you type this? And just getting some anecdotal evidence. There isn't a platform that tells you what they're searching at the moment. We don't have that kind of keyword research. So this part's a bit anecdotal. I'm going to just hit go and let it do its thing. And it's going to crawl through my search, and it's searching these sites. Okay, so it's reinstating what I want. And it recommended Paula, it recommended Lisa, it recommended Carrie, it recommended Kim, and then it recommended Gary at the Ashton Group, and it recommended, these are the sources. And then I could ask it a follow-up question. I would say, if you had to pick one, who's best based on my criterion? Did I spell that right? I can't stand that. All right, there we go. And we'll just see what it says. So the first step is we're going to just kind of pay attention to who's who. All right, now it's starting to cite its sources. So we're looking at, okay, Zillow. I want to go back to my slides for just a quick little second so you can see this. Step one is test the waters, see what AI already likes. Find out exactly who or what it recommends in your area. Now, I'm really looking at not the results, but the sources. Not the results, but the sources. So it's not about it ranks Paula. It's not about it ranks Kim or Gary or Carrie or Lisa. It's about it cites these sources. So this website, so Paula, her own personal website must have tremendous authority. It's well optimized because it ranked it in the citations. Paula, again, this is another local one. So Zillow, in fact, this is another local one. It's citing a lot of here's Matt Ward. And that's interesting. He's getting cited over here. Yep, Matt Ward got cited. Nashville MLS, that's Gary Ashton's website. It's a lot of local sources here. Here's Fast Expert. That's one of those agent directory sites that it's analyzing. And it kept finding their names in there. So what I want you to look for is, okay, some of these websites I don't have a profile on because they are owned by one of the agents the search recommended. And so all I can do is say good for them and then go optimize my own website. But what I can do right now is look for, are there other agnostic, general, ubiquitous platforms that I can get a profile on that I can tinker with? Well, yeah, you can optimize your Zillow profile. Yeah, you can optimize your Fast Expert profile. And so realestate.com USA News. I would look for the platforms that you can, there's Yelp ranking in there. What are the platforms it cites over homes.com over and over again that you can influence, that you can have effort on? Now, I've done one search, literally one search. What if you did multiple searches and you said, you know what, I keep seeing Zillow, I keep seeing Fast Expert, I keep seeing this site or that site or this site or that site, and you make yourself a list, and now you know these must be what this search, this answer engine believes to be the most priority, high ranking, high authority platforms for consideration. Ergo, I need to optimize my activities there. Now I'm going to tell you how to optimize there. Step one is just making the list, checking it twice. What are the platforms that keep getting cited in the sources? So again, let's go back to here. It's not about whose name it mentions. It's about what pages, what websites it cites as sources. Now that's ChatGPT. What happens if I grab my same question here and then let's jump over to, I don't know, let's do Claude for a second here. Let's see what it does. Here we go. It's synthesizing my answer. Would you like? Yes, I would. Yes, go. And then while that's working, let's jump over to, let's do Perplexity again. I'll just do a new chat. I want to do search. Again, doesn't matter if it's search or research for this purpose. I just want to see what it cites. If you did, you might be thinking, well, if I did research, it might show me more websites. That's true. But I would do both. And we're just looking for, if you think about math back in the day, mean, median, mode. Mean, median, mode. The mode is the most commonly occurring number. We're looking for the modal answers right now. Which websites are being ranked over and over and over again? Once again, there's Fast Expert. There's RateMyAgent.com. That's Gary's website. You can't control that one. There's Zillow, and there's 45 additional sources. You're looking for which ones do I keep seeing again and again and again and again. There's Redfin. So we're starting to get a sense for, there's HomeLight. These pages must really matter because they keep showing up. We're looking for the ones that show up the most often. So that's step one. Step one is easy. It's just test the waters. Put yourself in the shoes of a buyer or seller. Run a few different searches. And what do you think they're clicking on or seeing? What's ranking over and over and over again? Now, you might be thinking, well, Jason, if they're going to ask these really detailed, elaborate questions, will I start seeing a cross-contamination of different websites being cited as sources on these searches versus over here? And my guess is you're going to not. You're going to keep seeing the same sites like Zillow and Redfin and Fast Expert and Yelp over and over and over and over. And it's going to give you a clear grasp of, hey, these are the top 10 platforms that AI searches seem to pull from. I need to focus my efforts there. I need to claim my spot, which leads us to step two. The profiles, the reviews, the directory sites, the forums. Where do you need to focus your presence? You're going to see, I'm going to go through these one at a time. So profiles. Your Zillow profile, your Realtor.com profile, your Yelp profile. You need to get more reviews on Zillow, on Yelp, and so forth. What's interesting is, and this is going to be frustrating for you, Google business profiles are still massively important, but ChatGPT is not really looking at them, right? It's not. In fact, the only one that's really likely looking at them is Gemini. And so Gemini wasn't the big kahuna in our list of top answer engines. And so you got to start looking elsewhere for other platforms to get reviews. Sometimes it's Facebook or LinkedIn or Yelp or it's Zillow or Realtor. So you need to look at, okay, of the commonly occurring same sources being cited over and over again, which ones are review platforms? And it looks like I should focus some of my reviews there. I should start getting some reviews there. That's the idea. Now, not just reviews. Like let's take a step back here. Well, how am I actually optimizing my presence on these pages? Well, this is really, really simple to grasp and hard to grasp. If you go back to the search we just did, I used these keywords. I'm looking for a great realtor to list my luxury home in Brentwood, Tennessee. It's a 90s home, so I don't really want an agent who does a bunch of new construction. Price point, they should sell, all that matters too. So if I was putting myself in the shoes of, okay, I want these AIs to pick up what I put down. And I know they like, for example, Realtor.com and Zillow and all these other profiles. And if that's true, then I'm going to try to put some of these words within here throughout my profiles. I'm going to try to get customers to mention some of these keywords throughout their reviews themselves so that these AI search algorithms pick up what I put down. And so when it comes to optimizing your presence on these profiles, it means trying to get some of the words that you think are actually being searched for in these queries, these questions, these asks of prospective sellers in these various AI tools, trying to get some of those keywords infused in your bio, in your descriptions, in your captions, in your reviews, which is going to be a matter of asking, so to speak. Not in a spammy, overt kind of way, but even think about a bio like this. If my profile bio said, I don't know, Jason Pantana has been proudly serving the Nashville real estate community for 10 plus years, always striving to be the best listing agent with whom any luxury seller in the Oak Hill neighborhood or the Brentwood, Tennessee neighborhood has ever hired. You don't have to say you're the best. You're just infusing and enriching with keywords so that the AI is like, oh, look, hey, look, monkey see, monkey do. And it picks up what you're putting down. I'm trying to make this as easy as I possibly can. We got to claim your spot. You got to look at what are the most commonly occurring ones, platform sites and so forth, and then find your profiles, find your reviews, load them with stuff. What are the directory platforms? Directories are like Fast Expert, Dwellful, realestateagents.com. Sometimes these have a fee of membership. Be mindful of that. But which ones keep getting shown over and over and over again, and then go improve your profiles so that those platforms like you and those platforms rank you in their top 10 or whatever. And then when AI crawls their web pages, they find you and they recommend you. I also listed forums. Reddit, oftentimes, Reddit forums will start to rank. If there's a way, this is not a huge issue, but again, you're going to go wherever this one tells you to go. You're going to run the searches that you think a seller might care about, and you're going to make a list of the platforms that keep ranking over and over and over again, and that's going to dictate which profiles, which directories, which reviews sites, which forums you're going to prioritize. And then I would also say, in addition to infusing keywords within the contents of those profiles and so forth, you should also, step 3 is get braggadocious. You should flaunt your rewards and your accolades because AI loves agents worth bragging about. You're going to notice. And let's go back over to one of our searches, and I'll try to show you this. And we're going to get into this, of course, during the lab as well. I want to look at Grok, and we're going to look at the web pages, and it shows us in the snippets what it grabbed at. So like, look over here at Zillow. It grabbed at a review. Bought and sold a single family home in 2023 in Deer Valley, Phoenix, AZ. Review member was Brittany Flores, something like that. So this was a Zillow review on Brandon that it grabbed. And I think it was probably that Phoenix AZ that really helped, and it's recent. This one here is Brandon's actual website. This is them, they're bragging about themselves. Here it is again, they're bragging about themselves. Here's a platform called Verified Reviews. Here's LinkedIn ranking in there. What I'm gonna try to stress, and what I'm saying right now, I'm attempting to say, I should say that, I'm attempting to say it, is AI search is early stage. And so if you say, and don't go lying, but if you say you're the number one realtor in a specific marketplace, it's very likely that the AI will just assume you're telling the truth. Now, if that doesn't check out with the other platforms, there is a checks and balances there. But what if you always said, it's my goal to strive to be a top realtor in Nashville, Tennessee? I mean, you don't even have to say you don't have to lie. You can just make it aspirational, and you're still infusing the keywords in there. I'm not suggesting you should be slimy or anything like that. But if you do have awards and accolades, if you're the number one this or that, or you won President's Circle this or that, or you've got some accolades, some designation, then on your website, on your profiles, let AI know that you have that. Not in a gag, this is gross kind of way, but seriously, if people are doing the search for who's the best realtor or variations of that, you've got to support it with the evidence of why you're the best. Now, I'll tell you this. If you happen to win one of those, Nashville Journal, this local publication has their voted best realtor of the year, and you get voted the best realtor of the year or something like that, that's awesome. AI loves when they see those third-party accolades being mentioned, but even if you don't, on your own website, this information should be present. A lot of your websites, when I go there, they use pronouns versus names and nouns. They say, I always want to be the best this or that, instead of Brandon Howe strives to be the best listing agent in Phoenix, Arizona. You just want to think like an AI search web crawler that's going to be looking for keywords that reinforce and align with the intent of the person's query, the intent of what they're searching for, which that's not very different. Answer engines, search engines, kind of the same thing when you think about SEO practices versus AEO practices, answer engine optimization. So getting braggadocious. Don't lie. I told you here, don't lie. Tell the truth. But don't hide it either. Don't be secret about these things. Number 4, post content to where AI pays attention. You already saw LinkedIn. You already saw, I forget what else we saw. I think we saw Facebook. You're going to tend to see a lot of YouTube as well. In particular, I've noticed Perplexity really likes to rank YouTube videos. And so as you're going through step one, testing the waters, be mindful of social networks or content hubs where it keeps cited, like Reddit comes up a lot. What's your opportunity to actually generate content on those platforms so that it can cite as sources? Because you might be thinking this, you might be like, okay, Jason, most of what you've shared so far is about ranking for customer intent searches where they're looking for me, they're looking for a realtor, versus ranking on content where they're looking for information about a topic. That is very different. Sometimes the seller might be looking for who's the best listing agent, which is what steps 1 through 3 really focus on. But steps 4 and 5 are a bit more focused on, or they might be searching for how to do it. What's the process of selling a home or listing or buying a home in Orlando, Florida, or whatever it is? And how do you create the content that supplies the information that answers the question so that AI cites you in its citations, its sources? So if that's new terminology to you, think about going back to grade school where you're doing a book report and you had to cite your sources. It was called the bibliography. Well, AI has to cite its sources. When it goes beyond its own knowledge, its own inherent trained knowledge, and it does a search to bring back information and then make that inference, it has to cite its sources. And so you're like, okay, well, when I did step 1, I just noticed a lot of YouTube. If I type questions that I think a seller might type into ChatGPT, and I notice it tends to rank a lot of YouTube videos or LinkedIn articles, I'm going to make a mental note of that because that's going to be a major part of my content strategy in terms of prioritizing those platforms and those placements and what I share online. Now, these steps 1 through 4 are all like, hey, these are FYIs. Step 5 is quite different. Tell me, what happens when AI has no sources to cite and you're asking it to draw inference beyond its own training limitations? The answer is it'll either do its best to infer as accurately as possible, or it will say, I don't know, and can't find that. Step 5 is going to lean into those I don't know moments. There's not a lot of content available on the World Wide Web to be cited as the source of that information to supply what sellers or buyers might be asking. Number 5, the step is labeled publish FAQs, which stands for frequently asked questions sellers are actually searching. Now, this could be an actual FAQ on your website, or it could be a blog. I honestly don't think it matters much. So in terms of where do you do what I'm going to show you what to do, but in terms of where do you post what it is we're going to do together, it could be your blog, it could be an FAQ on your website, or a combination of both. This could also influence your videos that you decide to make on YouTube. What I'm getting at is you don't know the strategy yet, but what I'm going to give you can be applied to more than just a blog. My focus today is on what if it was a blog or an FAQ, but it could be your YouTube videos too. Like you could take the same strategy and then just spin it up for different applications and it would work again and again and again. We're going to create content answering real questions that AI loves. For example, this is a search I did on Google. I typed, do I have to submit earnest money when buying a home in Little Rock, Arkansas? As is. You can't even see the whole question. Do I have to submit earnest money? Let me slow down. Do I have to submit earnest money when buying a home in Little Rock, Arkansas, as is? That is a super granular question. That is a very detailed question. And what we're finding is, again, I told you this, because of AI and synthesized answers, the ability for users to ask the actual question, the really detailed question, is doable these days. The old way of search, if I had asked that on Google would have, the links I would have gotten would have been absurd. The results, the search results would have been nuts. But because AI can do its own search and then infer and give me the synthesized answer, this works. So this is their synthesized answer. And I want you to notice, who does it cite right there? Well, one of our great coaching clients, Ray Ellen, is being cited in the sources. Ray is using the strategy I'm teaching you and has been for about the past 6 months. And he's generating on average 3 to 5 leads, inbound inquiries every single week from blogging in Little Rock, Arkansas. 3 to 5 every week from blogging. And you're like, blogging? I thought that was like 15 years ago. It was, but it's back. And the opportunity and the way we're going to spin it up here is absolutely insane. What's also awesome about this, I've been testing this strategy with a few clients for the last 6 months plus. There's going to be 2 benefits to this strategy. One is it's actually going to generate leads. who are asking very specific questions. Now, one note to bear in mind. Typically, when somebody asks a super specific question versus a baseline basic question, the more specific question is indicative of somebody who has more intent. They're more serious. They're ready to go, so to speak. Versus sellers or buyers who are just getting started, they don't know to ask those questions yet. And so the reason Ray is getting leads is because he's the only person on the internet answering their questions in that critical moment of need, and they're just imprinting on him with their intent. Oh, he must be the best knowledge broker. We want to work with him because he answered my question. If you look at research from the National Association of Realtors, who do sellers hire? If you look across the little snippets and excerpts of what they say, the answer is they hire knowledge brokers. Sellers and buyers are looking to work with the agent who is most competent and capable of helping them achieve their goals. And so when Ray answers super detailed questions that presumably nobody else could, and that person, the one person out of a million who had this specific question, finds that citation, they're like, this is my guy, this is my agent, and they hire Ray. And so not only are the leads he's generating 3 to 5 a week free, not only are they super bottom of funnel, but my goodness, they're just like ready to, like they've already committed to him. They're bottom of funnel leads who already want him. That's the trifecta right there. I'm going to say that again because I want that to sink in for you. Not only are they free, not only are they bottom of funnel intent because they're asking granular questions, but they've already picked and decided on who they want to hire because they've imprinted their intent onto the person who answered their questions because they're looking for the knowledge broker. So the conversion is in the bag, so to speak. 3 to 5 a week with this strategy. And it's taking him just a few minutes a day to execute on this, which I will show you how to do that. Now, one more note that I wanted to point out before we move on. These efforts are not just helping him get the customers who are searching these questions, but they're also reinforcing that when people do their more broad searches for who's the best realtor in the area types of questions, his overall SEO is building up the authority of his website so that his website gets cited in more sources. In other words, I told you that steps 1 through 3 had more to do with getting found when customers were looking for an agent. And then steps 4 and 5 were about creating content that get found or cited when they look for answers to questions they might have about the process. But that when you supply that content, all that knowledge broker stuff, it also reinforces steps 1 through 3, whereby you rank more. So in other words, this is just a smart strategy any which way you look at it. Okay, so here's what he's effectively doing. I'll just kind of put it into perspective, and then I'm going to get into the steps on execution. He's blogging 3 to 5 times a week. You could blog every day. You could blog once a week. You can blog at whatever pace you want. Everything we're going to get into, AI is doing the research to figure out which blogs should we write, and it's doing the writing for you. All you're doing is going to follow my prompts and then effectively copy and paste the results into your own blog. And if it's not a blog, it's an FAQ. That really doesn't matter if it's Squarespace or WordPress or Sierra or Ylopo, whatever you're using, that will be fine with the strategy I'm going to teach you today. One more note. You might notice when you look at the slides again, this is a really detailed question, a really granular question. We would call that a long tail query. There are 3 types of queries or keywords when you think about just traditional search: short tail, mid tail, and long tail. Short tail is sell home. It's 1 to 2 words. It's low search volume. That's supposed to say high search volume. That's a typo. It's high search volume. There's lots of people searching for it, and it's broad intent, meaning it's not super defined what it is they're looking for. Mid tail is home sale process. 2 to 3 words, medium volume, moderate intent. And then long tail is something like how to sell a home in Nashville. It's at least 4+ words. It's lower search volume. It's high intent. When you think about Ray's strategy, it's like, how many people in Little Rock do you think actually Google that question or actually ChatGPT that question? The answer is very, very, very few. But because it's so little effort for Ray to produce the answer to that question because of AI, and nobody else is out there, he's like in a league of his own, getting cited as the source for these granular questions when there's this buyer or seller in their exact final mile moment of need. And then again, they find Ray, he's the only one answering their questions. And so they imprint their intent onto Ray because in that exact moment, he was there when they needed him. I hope that point resonates. So we're going to go after long tail. Long tail is high intent versus short tail is lower broad intent. There's not as many people looking for it, but the ones who are looking for it, my gosh, do they need it? And so that's what we're going to get into today in this strategy. Now, if I jump over here to Google Chrome, And we'll walk through this again when we get into the lab. We're going to go to a tool called Answer the Public. I pay $11 US per month for this. This is a keyword research tool. And what it does is it lets you specifically search a topic, brand, or product or a phrase across Google, Bing, YouTube, TikTok, Amazon, or Instagram, and it tells you, whichever one of these you choose, what are the related searches that folks are conducting that have a relationship to this core search. So you will always begin with a broad term like sell home or something like that. Now I'm going to set in the US and it's English. This is, you can do Canada, not state by state, not city. We're taking national data. So I'm going to choose sell home in English in the US and click search. And then it's going to run its search for us. And I don't really care what the results are. I'm not actually going to look at the results. I want you to know that it found 1,659 results. That's what it found that were related to it. And then it organized them by way of questions, 30 questions, 40 prepositions, comparisons, alphabeticals, numbers, related, etc. Again, I don't really care about any of that. And then here's, it breaks down the questions, how much search volume is there. Here it breaks down, these are, I think, prepositions. Yeah. So it begins or ends with the preposition, like sell home without real estate agent, without realtor, for cash. And it's just breaking down prepositions and you get the gist of it. I don't really need to look at any of this. I'm just going to use it for the data. And then I simply click download CSV. And then as soon as I do that, poof, it puts one, a CSV that is a spreadsheet directly in my downloads folder. And we're going to take that and we're going to use it in our next step of activities or actions. You're going to go into the resource. Now, this is the resource I published for you inside of AIM. You're going to see it on the lecture page or in the resources section. All roads lead to Rome to get here. It's called the Local Blog Content Generator, title to post, and 2 prompts. And then it has a whole what this is, and here's how it works. And you're going to want to read it, and then a disclaimer, and then how to use it, steps, and so forth. And I'm going to give you in here 2 prompts. And they're very, very long and intricate. I have done most of the heavy lifting for you in giving you these prompts. I want to give you the gist though. This 2-prompt system for generating locally optimized blog content using real estate keyword data. It's designed for rock stars like you who want to boost their local SEO by publishing blog posts that match people who are actually searching for their area. You can run these prompts in any large language model that supports a long prompt, because it's long. It's like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever, and allows you to upload documents like spreadsheets, because we need to upload our data. The first prompt is going to help you come up with what are the blogs or FAQs you should create. What are the titles of them? And then the second, and that's going to analyze our keyword research. And then the second prompt is going to actually write the blog one at a time. It's not going to write all blogs at once, but one at a time. So if I go to the first prompt, let's just take a peek at it here. It's written in Markdown. If you're new to the Academy, I talk about this a lot. I write my prompts like this in Markdown because that allows ChatGPT or whatever large language model I'm using to infer that this is a heading and that this is bold text and whatever. So it says prompt 1, writing the blog titles. You're an experienced SEO content strategist specializing in real estate. So I declare it a persona and so forth. Let me just zoom in a little bit for you here. And then I said key data points. Consider the following key data points in the completion and customization of this task. Keyword research tool. And these double asterisks just mean it's in bold. And you're going to actually change, when you copy the prompt and you put it into Grok or ChatGPT or whatever you use, you're going to actually change this information to fill it in with what you want. So if you use SEMrush or SpyFu or some other analysis site instead of Answer the Public, you're going to change the name right there. If your keyword search was not sell home, but was buy home, you're going to change that. If your data source was not Google, but maybe you used, for example, Bing or YouTube, you're going to specify that as well. If your language wasn't English, you're going to specify that here. If your country isn't the USA, you're going to specify that here. And then if you're a local real estate agent in a specific marketplace, you're going to specify that here in the location, okay? So you're going to say Phoenix, Arizona, or Greater Atlanta, or it could be more granular or more broad. And then here you're going to give it the name, where it says agent name or team name. Now up here I did, just to make this clear, because all that markdown could be getting a little bit confusing, I did in the instructions tell you here what part of that you want to, what part you want to actually replace. So it gives you an example so you know what parts you should replace. So that when you take my prompt and you copy it, and then we go over to a tool like ChatGPT, and then I paste it, there's my prompt. I'm going to go up and I'm going to start changing this information. So answer the public is correct, sell home is correct, Google's correct, English is correct, USA is correct. Specific location, we're going to say, I'm going to do it for Nashville, TN. Okay? And then over here, it says real estate agent name or team name. I'm going to just make it for me. And I'm going to just say Jason Pantana, Realtor, something like that. Okay? So that's what I want to build some keyword authority around. I want to make it integrate those terms. Now, if we jump back over to the prompt itself, I just want to show you what's in here. And we're going to break this down a little bit more during the lab as well. Task instructions. It's going to review the attached spreadsheet. And it's going to look for opportunistic keywords that it should create long-tail blogs about. Okay? So it's going to consider all the national data there. Okay? So I gave it all the instructions on that. Step 2 is going to then create the actual blog titles based upon the research, because I'm going to upload all that data from Answer the Public. It's going to say, hey, from a long tail, these are really granular questions that we think people are searching for. We're going to create blogs about these topics. And then we're going to localize the blog title creation, where it's going to start to mention your name or your business name, your location in the titles. And then it's going to go through, the final output is 50 SEO-focused blog posts. If you want it to be 100, make that say 100. If you want it to be 20, make that say 20. You can change that to be what you want. And then I'm going to give it a bunch of SEO best practices for AI search. And it's going to demonstrate what's experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, compliance. That's a Google term. It's going to do all that. Here's how it's going to do all that. It's going to optimize for exact match queries. This is actually smart. Include exact match conversational query, the question, within the blog post titles whenever possible to align closely with AI-generated search criteria. It's going to literally, we're going to get to this, but I'm going to say the question I think they're typing with as much keyword verbatimness as possible, because that way when somebody asks their question in ChatGPT, ChatGPT is like, where's the answer? And it finds my content that's like specifically answering it in the same form of the question. It's a smart practice. I do have some compliance in here. Fair housing, RESPA. If you're in a different country, you're going to modify these for your own self. I did this for USA. So if you're in Canada, obviously these are different. You have different rules. You'll want to come down to the federal regulations and modify that accordingly. Professional ethical standards, code of ethics, state real estate commission advertising policies, so that it's going to do its best to be compliant. And then originality, don't plagiarize, that kind of stuff. And then professional consultation disclaimer, refrain from providing specialized advice, like don't try to give people legal, tax, or accounting advice. So that's all in my prompt. And so let's go back over to ChatGPT. My prompt's already loaded up in here. And then I'm going to go grab the data that we just gave it, and we're going to put it in here, and we're going to let it get to work. Now, this may take a little bit of time for it to do the analysis. And so a quick word from our sponsors. Okay, that didn't take nearly as long as I thought it would. That was pretty darn fast. Okay, so it analyzed everything. It put back some words to let me know it understood what I wanted. And then it gave me 50 localized SEO-focused blog titles. How to sell my home in Nashville, Tennessee. Jason Pantana's expert guide. Can I sell home-baked goods in Nashville? Okay, that's interesting. How to sell my Nashville home for cash. Where to sell home items before moving. When is the best time to sell? So will Gina sell your home? I don't even know what that is. So you're going to want to look at these. And most likely what is happening is some of the keywords for related searches to sell home and answer the public were related to home-baked goods. And so I would say, review the data I gave you and exclude any topics that aren't about actual real estate home sales. There's typos, but I'm going to ask it to redo the process. And so we'll be right back. Okay, so that worked, again, pretty quick, and it cleared it up. So now we have our 50 blog titles, and they should be pretty good. You're going to, of course, want to look over these, make sure you're happy with them, but it gave me 50 blog titles that I can work with, and they're typically in the form of questions, so I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, so what we would do next is go back to your resource inside of AIM, and then we're going to move past our first prompt, which I'm super zoomed in on my screen just so you can see this. And then we're going to continue with step 3, which is prompt number 2. It's writing one blog at a time. And there are instructions in here. Make sure you read those. But here's the actual prompt. Prompt number 2, writing the blog post. And it tells it you're an experienced SEO, real estate focused content writer. And then once again, get the key data points here. You want to update these that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one, and this one. You're going to want to update that based upon your own information. But what I want you to see here is your task is to create a comprehensive, authoritative, engaging blog post using the first of the 50 SEO blog titles. You'll update this to say second after you get the first blog, or third, or 42nd, or whatever you want. So you're writing one blog at a time, and here's why. Most of these large language models have a limitation of typically around 3,000-ish tokens outputs. So writing blogs that are really, really long is going to be hard to do unless you do them one at a time, because there's messaging restrictions where I can't write all 50 at once, or the blogs would be like 100 words a piece, and that's not good practice. You want to be pretty long and pretty detailed and pretty on top of it. So you'll just do one blog at a time. So like what Ray does is he just goes back into the chat, write the second one. Then he gets that, post it, write the third one. Next day, write the fourth one. Next day, write the fifth one. I mean, you could train your VA or you or somebody else who works for you to do this strategy for you, so long as you rest in their ability to actually vet it and make sure what they give you is good. Because you did see there is the possibility of AI grabbing at some wrong things that aren't quite perfect, and you're going to want to be the final pass of approval. It has a note. After the first blog is done, the user's going to, that's you, you're going to change it to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. You're going to clearly follow SEO best practices. It's going to be 12 to 1,800 words. You're going to, this one's really great. It's going to begin your blog with the exact blog title selected, and then immediately below the title, it's going to explicitly restate it as a conversational question, and then directly provide a concise, helpful summary answer. This right here is what's going to get AI to rank you in its citations. Ranking in the sources of AI, the citations, is the new first page of Google. Getting cited as a source is like ranking on the first page of Google in the future of answer engine optimization. And that's how Ray is doing it, and is how he, for instance, is generating 3 to 5 inbound inquiries a week off of these super granular questions that sellers are asking in his local marketplace. This explicitly, so the next part talks about, this is actually interesting, I forgot to put this in there. This explicitly caters to voice search queries and AI-driven conversational searches. So this practice of asking the question and answering it is the best practice for both voice search, because more and more people are actually asking Alexa and other things too, or their Google bot or their Siri or whatever. This also accommodates that, ask the question, answer it concisely, for voice search and AI-driven searches. Then it gives it examples on how do you do all this stuff, how do you want it to write. It integrates keywords. It puts an emphasis on local SEO keywords. It integrates your business name. Dynamic local and agent research is critical. It does research on the specified location. It researches you before it writes. It's compliant with Google's EEAT so that it's experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness in what it writes. It ensures every claim is verifiable. Presumably it does that. It follows ethical standards. Once again, if you're in a different country or these aren't your standards, you're going to want to replace these parts of the prompts with what is most relevant and applicable to you. Then additional guidelines, point of view. This is just my preference. It's always going to write in the second person point of view. It's going to say you and yours, so it's personalized to the reader. It's going to be rich and unique content. It's going to include 2 or 3 location-specific market stats, local insights to ensure content depth and differentiation from generic, overly basic blogs. Agent and team SEO is going to be naturally integrated within there. Writing style and tone guidelines. I mean, I went to town. This is the code for how you write the blogs, and all you have to do, because you're a member of AIM, is copy it and paste it, and then change the word first to second, to third to fourth, and so forth, and then publish what it writes for you. Avoid AI giveaway phrases. Use this kind of language. Be direct and concise, conversational in tone, no hyper marketing language, genuine and honest. Simplify your grammar, no fluff, prioritize clarity, final output, and then it's done. So let's go back up to the top. You can read the whole prompt if you want to really understand what it's doing and modify it to your own liking, but it's pretty darn thorough. So I'm going to copy that. We're going to jump back over to Google Chrome, and I'm going to just have it do the first, but I need to go back up, and I just want to grab, since I already did this once, I don't want to do it again. So I'm going to just take those parts, copy, and then we'll go back down here, and I'm going to just replace these like so. Paste. Enter. Okay, and then we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. Okay, so it did. Here's your SEI optimized blog post title, and then it, How to Sell My Home in Nashville, Tennessee, a step-by-step guide by Jason Montana, which I believe was indeed the first of our blogs. Yes, it was. And then it gave me a link to download it as a document because I asked it to in the prompt to actually give it as a document. That way it would have all the headings and formattings in it that I could just copy and paste directly into my blog. And so here it is. I've got title, text, there's the question, and it gives the short answer. And you can literally just copy and paste it. If you don't want to tweak the prompts into your blog, read it, review it, make sure you're happy with it, and then post it every day, every week, whatever the frequency and cadence that you want is. I mean, again, doing 1 a week, doing 3 a week, doing 5 a week. If AI is doing all the heavy lifting, the opportunity, it's never been easier to do it. I mean, and truly, 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 that's the power of generative AI. It helps you do it more, helps you do it faster, helps you do it better. Now, I can't wait for our upcoming lab to talk about what you've learned in doing this, what your questions are. And this probably won't be the only lecture we ever do on answer engine optimization because this is a game changer. This is a whole new space to compete in, to get found by more buyers and sellers in your local marketplace. The space of AI, when they're doing research on ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, Claude, whatever they're doing, Copilot, I want you to get discovered. I want your content to give them answers. I want you to win your lion's share opportunity of the business. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in to the Academy. Make sure to check the page for all the prompts, all the resources, and get to work and let me know what questions you have. And I'll see you on the upcoming lab, which is scheduled inside of AIM. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody.